Hello there. I'm terrible at painting. Most of my experience with art is with pencil and ink, so I may or may not have been putting the time into this area to develop, the skill set I need. However, it's very valuable, and I feel like I need to add some color to my skill set. That's why for this video, I'm going to be learning how to paint. I think we're going to have probably 4 to 5 drawings in this video. So with that out of the way, guys, let's get right into it. So first, I'm going to bring out my last painting. This was me just trying to paint a woman, and as you can see, I tried having multiple light sources, and it didn't go so well. This may have been caused for several reasons, but one big thing is being the reference I used. I was kind of just bouncing around my saved, on Instagram, and I really had nothing to work off of. This being the case, I'm going to be using reference for all other pieces in this drawing just because I know it's actually super important, Another reason why I'm using reference for all of these is I really don't want to worry about composition and all the other aspects of creating original work. This is going to be more targeted and focused. Really what I want to focus on for this video is just the skill of painting itself, Now, a final caveat I'm going to add is the medium. For this original medium, I used acrylic traditionally on paper, and I really would want to do this again on traditionally. However, the fact of the matter is first off, I don't have the supplies. And second off, you know how much time it takes for paint to dry? I'm really strapped for time right now, guys. And if you guys haven't noticed, I'm going to be creating all of these digitally. As far as I can tell, the majority of people do actually recognize digital as actual artwork. But, we're getting tangled up in definitions right now and circumstance. The main reason I'm doing digital is just time. I can't be spending time waiting for the paint to dry. So let's move into our first piece. I'm going to be painting an apple. My reasons for picking this are actually quite interesting. Aside from the simplicity of the form, it's the fact that it's fairly glossy. That means we're going to be able to add some pretty different highlights into it and hue variation, even though it's all one color. One thing, vaguely in my recollection, is the idea that, real life reference is better. So I'm going to get my set ready. I'm going to be using a direct light source, although I'm still going to get some natural lighting from my window. However, this should actually give us, some surprisingly interesting lighting, even though it's, just from one direct source. Because the light actually has a slight yellow hue to it, whereas the natural lighting is going to give us a very slight blue hue. We have a pretty simplistic shadow too, just because the form's not too complicated, so I have pretty high hopes for the piece. While the time-lapse of this drawing is still going, I'll mention why there was no upload last week. This video took a lot longer to make for several reasons. For one, I'm doing multiple pieces in this video, whereas normally I just do one. Another slowing factor was the fact that I'm a pretty inexperienced with working with paint, so I could probably shave off 20% of my time if I had to make these again. But that's just how it is with learning new things. And for the final reason that I'm a terrible person who can't get the video out on time is the fact that I had to cram about 4 weeks of studying and homework for one of my classes because the smooth brain individuals managing the website. So if you guys want to see me wreck my schedule even more, make sure to leave a like on the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe, because I put a lot of time and effort into this. So with the crying and plugging out of the way, let's see the final product we got after grinding this painting out for a couple hours. I actually really like how this turned out. This kind of broad brushstrokes and not overly blended look, it's something I'm really into. The different highlights keep the image interesting, and there's actually a little bit of bounce light in the shadow. I don't know if you guys could tell. I try to incorporate that. Well, I could probably, spend a little bit more time on this and get a little bit more realistic. I'm completely happy with this. I really like how this turned out, guys. So let's move into the next piece. Now, I just did an object in my face, so to really add to my skill set, I will be creating a background. This is where things started to turn for the worse in my drawing process. I started out the apple painting just going straight into it because, I had the exact reference I needed. It's right in front of me. And, I tried the same approach on this one. And while the apple turned out pretty well, when I started constructing the background, I felt one thing. Lost. You see, the basic technique is having blue tones for objects really far away, and when something gets closer to the point of view, you want to get it closer to its true value and hue. This is why mountains, when they're actually brown and green, will look blue in the distance. It's because air isn't actually perfectly transparent. There's something there. It's not empty space, and you can really only see this when you're looking at an object super far away. Now, you can imagine applying this to all the different, values, tones, and everything else can get pretty complicated pretty fast. So I eventually had to scrap this piece. If I were to remake this again, I would probably go into full line art before I even started the painting process, because there's just so many different things to keep in mind here. So, starting off the second drawing with an L. To drown my sorrows of failure out, I decided to make one of my favorite recipes, honey glazed salmon. It's a relatively simple dish, and it starts with seasoning my fillets, then I'll get a nice sear on them, add some minced garlic, and, you know, this honey sriracha mixture to the pan. And after basting it and, you know, cooking it all the way through, with sauce that should have thickened up quite a bit, and we get a pretty good meal to eat. I'm just gonna plate it with some rice because, you know, it goes pretty well together. However, I think one thing I have to get off my chest is I didn't just make this salmon for my sake, guys. This is what we're gonna be drawing next. But before I even get into the drawing, there's just something I have to get off my chest. If any of you guys eat your salmon medium rare, as if it were a steak, I'd recommend finding your nearest shrink and asking them why you are the way you are. What childhood trauma could have caused you to eat something so disgusting? Who do you think you are, bro? Ugh. Gross. Of course, you know, me being a little clout goblin, you know, I'm still gonna eat this, but the main focus was just to get the next item to draw, you know? The difference between this and the original apple was the fact that I took this picture later at night, so we're not actually gonna get the blue highlights from the natural lighting right next to it. It's the same place, same direct light source, you know? We're not gonna have the same blue highlights from the outside world. And I gotta say, after getting humbled by my last drawing, that I couldn't even finish. This was a nice little confidence. It ended up being slightly, you know, simplified. However, I think it looks pretty delicious and has just enough detail to make it convincing. Guys, I'm telling you right now, this is a really great meal to eat. Just thinking about it right now makes my mouth water. And now that MasterChef is over, and hopefully I haven't generated too much interest in this dish and to make my viewers leave, which, you know, you guys should actually try making this after the video. I'll make sure to pin it down below. I'm going to be practicing something I felt was underdeveloped in my original piece. I'm going to be working on some folds and some clothing. For this, I decided to go with a simple suit. While it's actually not super similar to what I was originally trying to make, it's fairly common, and I feel I'll end up needing it sometime in the future, so it'd be good practice. And for this, I actually had some sketch of the suit before I even started. From what I recall, this was one of my throwaway drawings that I cut into my videos sometimes. Usually for these, I try to spend a minute or two on the sketch, you know, which ends up making it very messy, and I had to fix some of the details on the clothes. For one, the collar was a bit too boxy and bold. I had to subtle it out quite a bit, as well as the fact that, you know, the actual, I guess what you would call it is the suit collar itself wasn't quite where it needed to be. It needed to be shifted up quite a bit. However, when I actually sat down and looked at some references, I could point out these structural problems really easy and correct them. And in the process of doing this, you know, I was keeping my colors pretty bold, and I eventually had to move all of my colors towards gray quite a bit. Yet, while this did make the image closer to the reference, I felt it made it a little less interesting, and that's just the way it ended up going. I think it turned out pretty decent, and I think it's time to move into our final drawing. This was a complete shit show. First, when I was deciding what to make to round off this whole video, I wanted to do something similar to my original drawing so that there'd be like a nice measurement of growth from this whole endeavor. Me being the clout goblin I am, I decided to pick something from Euphoria. You know, it's trendy right now. Hopefully I could wave ride some of this and, you know, gain some clout. That was that was really it. And I eventually found an image of Sweeney, and it's pretty similar to what I had envisioned for the original painting. Really great level of contrast, and, you know, most importantly, she's bad as fuck. However, the lighting of this image is actually super complex and annoying. First, there's a strong orange light coming from the bottom left, but there's also a slightly less strong, but still decently strong, guys, blue light coming from the top. And, you know, these different colored and directional light sources ended up giving me quite a bit of trouble. And this, combined with the fact that I really can't draw skin tones for shit, ended up making my life a living hell. I ended up using about 10 layers on this drawing, spending 2 to 3 days working on it. You know, originally I started going in with this broad brushstroke type pen they have. The program I'm using is Krita, by the way, guys. It's free, open source, whatever, you know. If you guys don't have Photoshop, you could use this. But the reason I'm not using Clip Studio is I was feeling my my values were a little bit too gray when I didn't really want them that way. So for this, I ended up using this free software. And this brush, while it did work really well for the apple, it just didn't work out too well on this drawing. I don't know what to say. When I was using this for the face, it ended up getting very messy, so I pivoted to using a round mixing brush. Almost any program has this brush. It's very standard. And while I did get a better blend on the face, it ended up making my painting quite a bit more muddy. So I eventually went over her whole body with a flat cover and had to start back from square one. After all this time and effort, my drawing still looked like poo-poo. So I decided to, take a break. I figured the best thing I could do right now, I've been working quite a long time, was, sleep on it, see what I could do in the morning. And I'll let you guys see what the final product is. Number one, painting is hard. There are so many different things to keep track of while working, and you could easily spend hours zoomed in too deep in your canvas and working on the details that actually don't matter when you look at it as a whole. And secondly, painting is time consuming. This video was originally intended to come out on the 31st, and it's Tuesday of the following week, We'll see if I get the editing done by today so I could get this out for you. But it definitely does take a lot more time than pen and ink. Now, I definitely have gotten better as a result of this. However, as always the case is with art, there's more that can be done. So, here it is. I hope you guys have found this video interesting. I'm gonna be posting all of these these paintings on my Instagram, as well as the green goblin I made for the last video that I may or may not have forgot about. And while you guys are still here, you should watch the last video. This is where I talk about the different forms of perspective. Hopefully you guys find it helpful and entertaining. Make sure you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys next Monday, 5 p.m. EST.